Welcome back to the deep dive. We are jumping straight into a procurement story today that's really much bigger than just the hardware. We're focused on Singapore's official decision to acquire the Boeing P-8A Poseidon. That's its next maritime patrol aircraft, or MPA.
And this is not just, an equipment refresh. You should really see this as a statement, a strategic statement.
Yeah.
I mean, Singapore is tiny less than 280 square miles total area, but its location, right, astride some of the world's most vital waterways.
Absolutely critical.
Well, this P-8 purchase, it's a very high-end, almost generational investment. It's designed not just to patrol, but, well, to project a certain amount of influence and secure those critical trade lanes, especially with regional threats evolving so quickly.
Yeah, the sources we've pulled together, defense journals, official statements, the usual suspects, give us a lot to unpack here. What I want to figure out is this P-8 buy just about the technical jump in capability, or is the political signaling, the strategic interoperability, just as important as the speed and range of the jet itself?
Good question.
So, our deep dive today is really to break down that capability leap, get a handle on the geopolitical context. Think South China Sea, and see how this fits into Singapore's, frankly, ambitious military modernization overall.
And the key detail right at the start.
Mm.
They're getting 4 P-8As in this first phase. That alone is a massive commitment. Just think about the scale of change here. They're moving from essentially aging, propeller-driven, modified transport aircraft.
The Fokker 50s.
Right, the Fokkers.
Yeah.
To a sophisticated jet-powered platform specifically designed as a submarine hunter. I mean, this isn't some small step. It's a complete transformation of their maritime intelligence and their deterrence capability.
Okay, let's dig into that, starting with what they're replacing. For decades, the Republic of Singapore Air Force, the RSAF, they've relied on 5 Fokker 50 Enforcer 2 MPAs.
That's right. And those Fokkers, they've been in service since 1993. Just think about that time frame. Well, it's over 30 years. They've been workhorses, sure, and they were even modified to carry the AGM-84 Harpoon anti-ship missile, but they are definitely showing their age now.
Yeah, it sounds like a classic case of, military hardware getting old, but also the sustainment becoming a real headache, doesn't it? As fewer people fly the Fokker 50 globally getting spares, it just gets harder and way more expensive.
Exactly. The logistics tail becomes unsustainable. They're badly in need of replacement just from an airworthiness and cost perspective. But the critical point, the one our sources really hammer home, is their lack of any real anti-submarine warfare, or ASW, capability.
And that seems to be the absolute core driver here. Singapore's Ministry of Defense, they were pretty explicit about it. Their statement said the acquisition will, and I quote, strengthen the Singapore Armed Forces' maritime situation awareness and ability to counter subsurface threats.
You can't really understate that. If you're responsible for helping secure the Malacca Strait, one of the busiest shipping lanes on the planet, a potential choke point, you simply cannot afford to be blind to modern, quiet submarines operating in your backyard. The Fokkers were just, fundamentally outmatched by that modern underwater threat.
Okay, so the need is clear. Robust ASW. But here's the interesting bit. Why the P-8A Poseidon? It's known for being complex, expensive, when they could have potentially looked at, say, older, refurbished ex-US Navy P-3 Orions, or maybe the brand new but smaller Airbus C-295 MPA. Was cost not the main factor here?
That's where you see the strategic calculation, I think. They definitely looked at those other options, but they chose the jet. And maybe more importantly, they chose the platform that's also a major network hub. Yes, P-3s are capable, legendary even, but they're older airframes. They come with their own set of legacy sustainment challenges.
Right. You might be buying into a different set of problems.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And the C-295, it's a modern twin turboprop, much smaller, certainly cheaper up front. But that size inherently limits your speed, your range, and importantly, your capacity for future upgrades and growth.
That does bring up an interesting trade-off, though. The P-8 is based on a Boeing 737. It's huge compared to a C-295. Doesn't that size potentially limit where they can operate from? Smaller regional airstrips, maybe forward operating bases?
It certainly imposes some limitations on basing flexibility compared to a smaller turboprop, yes.
Yeah.
You need longer runways, more ground support. But Singapore clearly decided that the advantages in range, speed, altitude, and sensor capacity outweighed that particular drawback. The P-8 just offers massive advantages.
Yeah.
Bigger airframe for crew comfort on long missions, space for future sensor fits, significantly more range, and crucially, much faster transit time to get where it needs to be.
And that speed factor is vital, isn't it? If you get a potential submarine contact hundreds of miles out,
Time is critical.
the P-8 can sprint to the operational area quickly, and then its higher operating altitude gives its sensors a much wider view, extends that look over the horizon significantly. I've read U.S. Navy P-8 missions can easily top 10 hours on station. That kind of endurance must completely change their patrol game.
It really does. It transforms effectiveness. And remember, the P-8 is a genuinely multi-mission platform, which helps justify that higher cost. It handles the core ASW role, obviously, but also anti-surface warfare hunting ships, plus high-level intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, ISR, and even standard search and rescue.
Okay, now the ISR part gets really interesting. I understand the P-8's standard electronic support measures suite, the ESM. It allows for some pretty advanced electronic intelligence gathering.
Oh, absolutely. This is a key capability. It means they're not just looking for visual or acoustic signatures like a periscope or engine noise. They can passively detect, identify, and locate enemy radar emissions, communication signals, basically mapping out an adversary's electronic order of battle, their EOB.
EOB mapping. That's a game changer, isn't it? For the listener, what does that practically mean?
It means Singapore can build a detailed picture of potential adversaries' electronic capabilities, where their air defense radars are, what frequencies they use, how their targeting systems talk to each other, often without those adversaries even knowing they're being watched. It's a crucial long-range intelligence layer. It helps assess intent and capability from a safe distance, and the P-8 airframe has the space and power to potentially add even more specialized gear later, like the NAPS-154 Advanced Airborne Sensor, the EAS radar.
So it's built with the future in mind. Strategically future-proofed, you could say. And speaking of the future, they're also thinking about keeping these things flying, the sustainment aspect.
That's right. These planes are slated to enter service around the early 2030s, so still a few years out. But crucially, Boeing and Singapore's own ST Engineering SDE, their big defense tech group, they've already signed a memorandum of understanding on P-8 sustainment.
So locking that in early.
Exactly. It secures their own long-term maintenance and support needs, but it also opens a door, potentially, for STE to become a regional service hub for other P-8 operators in the Asia-Pacific. That's smart, both strategically and economically.
Okay, let's pivot a bit now and connect this hardware, this very capable hardware, directly to the strategy. Why does this purchase matter so much regionally? We mentioned Singapore's reliance on maritime trade through the Malacca Strait, that key choke point, and the wider South China Sea.
Well, the P-8 becomes incredibly relevant when you look at the rising regional tensions. And we have to report impartially here. China continues to assert its claims across the South China Sea. Part of that involves the construction of man-made islands, which have been turned into military outposts.
And these aren't just sandcastles.
Far from it. These outposts are increasingly equipped with significant A2AD capabilities. That's anti-access and area denial. Think surface-to-air missile batteries, shore-based anti-ship missile launchers, hardened aircraft shelters, long runways.
Right, A2AD. For the listener, how should we think about that concept? What's the strategic effect?
Think of it like creating a heavily defended keep-out zone, extending hundreds of miles out into the ocean. It makes it extremely risky, extremely dangerous for potentially opposing military forces ships or aircraft to operate inside that bubble. The P-8's role, operating often from the edge of or outside these zones, is to safely monitor, map, track, and gather intelligence on that expanding defensive network and the forces operating within it.
And the main forces they'd be monitoring in that context would be the People's Liberation Army Navy, the Plan, which is undergoing just unprecedented growth.
Yes, particularly the plan's surface fleet expansion, and maybe even more critically, its growing and modernizing submarine force. Keeping tabs on those increasingly quiet subsurface assets. That's a high-stakes, high-priority job for a platform like the P-8.
Beyond just watching potential adversaries, though, this P-8 purchase brings something else huge to the table: interoperability.
Oh, massively important. If you connect this to Singapore's alliances and partnerships, look at the 5 power defense arrangements, the FPDA. Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, the UK. They've all either ordered or are already flying the P-8. Malaysia is the exception currently. But think about that commonality.
And other key regional players, too.
India, South Korea, even Norway uses them. And of course, the biggest operator by far is the U.S. Navy.
So having that common platform means Singapore can potentially share sensor data, intelligence, maybe even tactical information almost instantly with its closest defense partners. They're all speaking the same language, technologically speaking.
Exactly, a common operating picture. And the political signaling was clear, too. Singapore's Defense Minister, Chan Chun Sing, personally informed his U.S. counterpart, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, back on September 10th, 2025. It reaffirms that long-standing, excellent bilateral defense relationship. This buy definitely helps strengthen Singapore's strategic ties with the U.S.
Okay, so the P8 signals alignment. It brings interoperability. But you mentioned earlier, we need to see this as just one piece of a much bigger puzzle, right?
We absolutely must. This isn't happening in isolation. It's part of a really comprehensive overhaul of Singapore's entire military posture, particularly its maritime and air capabilities. Its full-spectrum modernization.
Right. Looking at the naval side alone, they're upgrading their current formidable class frigates. They're buying 6 new multi-role combat vessels. They're investing heavily in uncrewed surface vessels, USVs. Plus, they ordered 2 more Type 218 SG submarines on top of the 4 they already had on order. That's a lot of investment in underwater and surface control.
And all those pieces are designed to work together, ideally in a networked way. You can imagine the PA providing that wide area overhead surveillance, maybe cueing the quieter, smaller USVs, acting as forward sensor platforms, which are in turn protected by the frigates and the submarines operating underneath. It's a layered, integrated system they're building.
And in the air, it's not just the P-8s. They're significantly boosting their fighter fleet with the F-35 Lightning II. They recently added 8 of the conventional takeoff F-35As to their earlier order for 12 of the short takeoff vertical landing F-35B variants. First deliveries are expected around late 2026. So they're getting a cutting-edge, networked, stealthy Air Force alongside this top-tier maritime patrol capability.
And that word networked is really the key concept tying all this together. The central goal seems to be integration. Defense Minister Chan Chun Sing actually talked about this during a visit to exercise Forging Sabre over in the U.S. He highlighted Singapore's intense focus on linking everything together, from high-end platforms like the P-8 and F-35 right down to potentially commercial off-the-shelf drones.
Right. He shared that great analogy the exercise participants were using. The challenge is creating a grab-a-bomb service.
Yeah, it's a fantastic analogy. It perfectly captures this idea of operational agility they're striving for. The challenge, as he put it, is ensuring that any sensor, whether it's a sophisticated radar on the P-8 or maybe a cheap camera on a small drone using a totally different communication system, can find a target. And then that information gets instantly routed to the best available shooter, be it a missile from an F-35, a torpedo from the P-8, maybe even a cyber or electronic warfare effect, to engage that target in the absolute shortest possible time.
Across different platforms, different communication links, making it all seamless.
Seamless and incredibly fast. That agility, connecting sensors to shooters rapidly and flexibly, that's what the minister stressed as being fundamental to their strategic winning edge.
It really paints a picture of a complete system overhaul. Thinking about older kit, the only other major platform that seems due for replacement soon, besides the Fokkers we discussed, is the RSAF's C-130 Hercules transport fleet. Some of those airframes are ancient.
Yes, some of the C-130B models are pushing 70 years old. Incredible workhorses, but definitely nearing the end. Given the pattern of buying high-end, interoperable, U.S.-sourced equipment, the C-130J Super Hercules seems like the obvious frontrunner for that role eventually.
So, stepping back, what this really shows is a very systematic, very deliberate long-term plan. Replace legacy assets with best-in-class networked options. Maximize interoperability with key allies. And ensure maximum strategic awareness in what's become a very complex neighborhood.
Precisely.
Okay, so to summarize the key takeaways for you, the listener, Singapore is making a huge investment in high-end, networked maritime intelligence and, critically, anti-submarine warfare capabilities with this P-8 buy. This isn't just nice to have, it's seen as essential for securing their economic lifelines through the Malacca Strait and projecting influence in the vital and increasingly contested South China Sea. The P-8 brings speed, range, endurance, and perhaps most importantly, that unparalleled interoperability with allies.
And the broader point is, despite its small physical size, this purchase, we add it to the F-35s, the new submarines, the advanced frigates, the USVs, it demonstrates Singapore's clear determination to acquire truly strategic assets. Assets that allow it to operate effectively and project power well beyond its immediate shores. They're building one of the most modern, capable, and strategically relevant military forces in the region, arguably in the world, pound for pound.
Which leads us perfectly into our final thought for you to mull over. Given Singapore's intense focus on integrating manned and unmanned systems, that whole grab-a-bomb concept, across its new P-8 and F-35 fleet, and given their absolute need to maintain that strategic agility through networking, what unseen capabilities might they be looking at next? What non-kinetic platforms, perhaps cyber or advanced electronic warfare tools, or maybe even AI-driven decision aids, might Singapore acquire to ensure that agility truly remains its winning edge in the future?